Now the question 23 over here is the red color of the gem ruby is predominantly due to, and the options are given, O2 to Al3 charge transfer, that is a ligand to metal charge transfer, O2 to C3 plus charge transfer, red emission, phosphorescence of chromium 3 plus ions, red emission, fluorescence of Al3 plus ions. Now, over here, for charge transfer to occur from a ligand to metal, okay, the criteria is that the metal should be in a very high oxidation state. That is to say, like as we have seen in chromates and dichromates or permanganates, where for chromium it is +6 and for permanganate it is +7. Okay, that is when the charge transfers are occurring from ligand to metal. Okay, but since here it is aluminium 3 plus state and chromium 3 plus state, so we will say these are not the correct options. However, we have to choose from 3 and 4. So to explain that, what we will do, we will consider the D3 Tanabe-Sugano diagram for chromium. And once we see, we can see that the 4A2, that is 4A2G state is the ground state. And here 2EG is running parallel to the 4A2 ground state. And the electrons are getting promoted, obviously following spin multiplicity selection rule, from 4A2G to your 4T2G and 4T1G, as shown in the Tanabe-Sugano diagram. Now, what is also interesting is that 2EG is running very much parallel to the ground state, that is 4A2G. What is basically a ruby? Ruby is basically when chromium, these occupy sites of aluminium isomorphously, okay, in a crystal of Al2O3, which is a corundum, okay, and the color of the ruby is basically because of this presence of chromium. The more the chromium is present, the more the color will be towards red, or is also called the pigeon blood red. And if there is less chromium, then that particular color goes to the pink side. Okay. Now, what is happening over here is that when the chromium goes inside the crystal, obviously means because chromium is of a bigger size than that of aluminium. So once it is substituted into the Al2O3 lattice, obviously the CRO distance will be smaller than expected. Okay. And because of that, so there is a larger interaction between the ligand and the chromium. And so we will say that the splitting, if there was a normal chromium bond, oxygen bond, then it is somewhere here. Now, particularly for the crystal, it is increasing, okay? Because there is no more interaction now because of a shorter distance. So the d orbitals will split more. So what we can say over here is this unusual red color is because of this kind of interaction at a shorter distance. What is happening is that there are two excited states, which is 4T2G and 2EG, okay? And these states, they are much more matching in energy and with the lattice vibrational energies. So here intersystem crossing can happen very easily. And whenever light, when it is promoted, okay, and there is an intersystem crossing between two different multiplicities, then what we will say that there is a phenomenon of phosphorescence can occur. So from here itself, we can get the answer that the phenomenon is basically phosphorescence. Now, once the photons of red light, they are promoted and they degrade to the 2EG2 state. So obviously there will be more chromium in that particular state. So there is a population inversion, okay, which is necessary. Now what will happen after that? As these photons of red light will be emitted via phosphorescence, okay, the population inversion allows them to excite other photons of same wavelength, okay, And this is also known as simulated emission. Now, this light that is being emitted will actually keep bouncing within the edges of chromium, okay, which we are calling as mirrors at the ends of the ruby, and they will all be of same phase. So the light that is coming out of the ruby, okay, will be a monochromatic light, and its intensity will be much more higher, okay, because they are in phase, so they all will combine together, and you will get much more intense light. So this is what is happening in ruby, and so obviously we will say here C or 3 is our answer, okay, as we can see back. Yeah, 3 is our answer. So the red emission is basically due to phosphorescence. Let's take the question number 24. Here it is being said, the correct pair among the following in which each of the species show orbital contribution to the magnetic moment. Concept here is that whenever you have to consider orbital contribution to the spin magnetic moment, here it can increase the spin magnetic moment, or its value can be below the spin magnetic moment because of this orbital contribution. Now, this orbital contribution will only happen, okay, the rule is that if, for examination purpose, I'm saying, if the T2G level or T level, okay, T2G level obviously for octahedral field, and T level for the tetrahedral field, if it is unsymmetrically occupied. When I'm saying unsymmetrical occupation, obviously I'm talking it has any other combination apart from Te3 or T2G3 or T2G6 or T6, okay. So when it is T3, it is half filled, or T2G3, it is half filled. When it is having 6 electrons, then it is completely filled. So when it is having any combination apart from this, okay, it is going to show orbital contribution to the spin magnetic moment. So what we do, that is the rule. What we will do, we will calculate the oxidation states, and then we will write the environment in which the metal is, and we will write the number of d electrons it has, and then we will write the electronic configuration depending the metal is in a tetrahedral or in octahedral, and we will judge whether it is having a symmetrical T2 level or T2G, or it is having an unsymmetrical T2G or T2, okay. So the first option, it is cobalt Cl4 2-, obviously oxidation state of cobalt will be 2, that means it is a D7 in a tetrahedral. What we will say, it is E4 T2 3, okay. You can even draw the level energy levels and then fill up the electrons and then find what is the electronic configuration, okay. Just it will take much more time. For the nickel hexaqua complex, we can see it is going to be D8 octahedral field. So obviously your lower state is T2G and higher state is EG, and you will say T2G6 and E2. In both the cases, you can see it is having T2 and T2G6, so it is symmetrically filled. Hence, we will conclude no orbital contribution. In the option 2, it is nickel Cl4 2- and COF6 2-. Oxidation state will tell you it will be in D8 state, but in tetrahedral geometry. Cobalt is in octahedral geometry, and it is D7, okay. Now, if we do the electronic configuration, what we can see over here, it is E4 T2 4, and here it is unsymmetrically filled. Also for the next option, which is COF6 2-, we can see that here the T2G is also unsymmetrically filled, okay. Hence, what we conclude, that this particular option, both the complexes are showing orbital contribution. Now we got to find out whether the other ones are they showing or they're not showing. Similarly, we found out for cobalt, outside it's 2+ charge, obviously at water being neutral, we will say the oxygen state of cobalt is 2. D7 system in octahedral geometry. And the next one is chromium. It is a D3 system in a octahedral geometry. Now, for cobalt, we will say it is having an unsymmetrical Lie field T2G state. But what about chromium? It is having a symmetrically filled T2G state. So obviously, one is showing and another one is not showing. So this cannot be our answer. For the next one, nickel hexaamine complex. Here, obviously, again, it is a D8 system. T2G is symmetrically filled, so no contribution to the orbital contribution to the spin magnetic moment. Okay, and here we have chromium. It is going to be chromium in 2 state, so that means it is a D4 system, but in a tetrahedral field. And what we see is that the T2 is having unsymmetrical. It is unsymmetrically filled, as we can say. So one is showing, that is CrCl4 is showing orbital contribution to the magnetic moment, but nickel is not showing. So this also is not our correct option. Hence, we conclude that 2 should be our correct answer. All right. Next. Here the question is, Mars test is used to identify traces of elements, that is arsenic, antimony, bismuth, selenium. Now, obviously developed by Marsh, following some previous observations to test arsenic. So obviously it is a memory-based question. Arsenic should be our answer. Little bit of analytical chemistry, which I need to explain. Now, if you take either As2O3 or Sb2O3 or Bi2O3, okay, the state is not for selenium. All of them being in the same group. If you use nitric acid in presence of zinc, then it also forms AS forms ASH3, that is arsine. Okay, then we will have SbH3 from the same reaction and BiH3 from the same reaction. The test, if you see the whole picture, now this is passing through a tube which is going a drying agent, okay, and at the end we are igniting this gas. Now on ignition, we take whatever the product is on a piece of paper, which is going to be the metallic arsenic, okay, Sb or Bi. So this test is given by all the 3 components. What is interesting, where Marsh comes in as a scientist, he found out that, okay, fine, all these 3 metals are giving a positive test given by arsenic, so we can call them as interfering agents. But he found additional techniques to identify whether it is arsenic, Bi, or it is Sb. And how he did that, to distinguish between Sb and As, he treated both, okay, the materials that formed after burning the gas with sodium hypochlorite, okay. And what he found out was that if it is arsenic, okay, it will be attacked by sodium hypochlorite, okay. Now, if he had to distinguish between all the 3, that is Bi, Sb, and As, then for that, the technique was that we have to treat with sodium hypochlorite and ammonium polysulfide. Sodium hypochlorite will be attacking arsenic and ammonium polysulfide will be attacking Sb, but it will have no effect on Bi. So looking at this test, one can make a conclusion whether the gas that is coming out, it is ASH3, SbH3 or BiH3. That is the analytical chemistry over here working. So our answer over here, obviously, as I have told before, is going to be arsenic. But how to distinguish between them, I have given the explanation for that. Okay, next. This is rather a very simple question that has been asked. Okay. In a sample of charcoal, the remaining fraction of 14C is, it says remaining fraction. Okay. That is the critical part in the question. Other things are very simple. Is 2 into 10 to the power minus 2. Its age is, in years, is closest to, we have to find out, given the T half for a 14C is 5730 years. Now, what we need to do over here, this is the solution. The decay constant is related to T half, as we all know, and it is shown there as equation 1. To calculate time for any first order radioactive sample. So for there, we use this equation wherein T is equal to 2.303 by K log N0 by N. N0 is when or amount of sample that would have been present when time was taken to be 0, and N is this amount of sample which for the time we are considering now. So combining these two equations, we have another equation which I have shown over here. All right, which I have shown over here. As you can see, this is the equation over here. All right. Now, N by N0 is the remaining fraction. Okay, that is the critical part, as I've said. Now, if you just plug in these values over here in the equation that we obtained from equation number 1 and 2, then obviously our answer comes out to be 3.2 into 10 to the power 4 years. Okay.